My presentation begins with two prologues. The first is a warning. I'm a creative writing student, so the majority of my time is spent cowering in a corner, twitching and pale and writing, and generally not in front of people speaking or doing PowerPoints. So you'll have to bear with me on that one. The second one, fittingly, is a story, which I'd like to read to you. It's called The Prince and the Magician. Once upon a time, there was a young prince who believed in all things but three. He did not believe in princesses, he did not believe in islands, and he did not believe in God. His father, the king, told him that such things did not exist. As there were no princes, princesses, or islands in his father's domains, and no sign of God, the prince believed his father. But then, one day, the prince ran away from his palace and came to the next land. There, to his astonishment, from every coast he saw islands, and on these islands, strange and troubling creatures whom he dared not name. As he was searching for a boat, a man in full evening dress approached him along the shore. "Are those real islands?" asked the young prince. "Of course they're real islands," said the man in evening dress. "And those strange and troubling creatures? They are all genuine and authentic princesses." "Then God must also exist," cried the young prince. "I am God," replied the man in evening dress with a bow. The young prince returned home as quickly as he could. "So you're back," said his father, the king. "I've seen islands, I've seen princesses, I've seen God," said the prince to his father. The king was unmoved. "Neither real islands, nor real princesses, nor a real God exist." "I saw them." "Tell me how God was dressed." God was in full evening dress. Were the sleeves of his coat rolled back? The prince remembered that they had been. The king smiled. "That is the uniform of a magician. You've been deceived." At this, the prince returned to the next land and went to the same shore, where once again he came upon the man in full evening dress. "My father, the king, has told you who you are," the prince said indignantly. "You deceived me last time, but not again. Now I know those are not real islands and real princesses, and you're a magician." The man on the shore smiled. "It is you who are deceived, my boy. In your father's kingdom there are many islands and many princesses, but you are under your father's spell, so you cannot see them." The prince returned home. When he saw his father, he looked him in the eye. "Father, is it true you're not a real king, but only a magician?" The king smiled and rolled back his sleeves. "Yes, my son, I am only a magician." Then the man on the shore was God. The man on the shore was another magician. The prince said, "I must know the truth beyond magic." "There is no truth beyond magic," said the king. The prince was full of sadness. He said, "I will kill myself." The king, by magic, caused death to appear. Death stood in the door and beckoned to the prince. The prince shuddered. He remembered the beautiful but unreal islands and the unreal but beautiful princesses. "Very well," he said, "I can bear it." "You see, my son," said the king, "you too now begin to be a magician." It's a story that has always fascinated me, and I figured it would provide a nice underlying thematic current for what I'm about to talk about. But as you can see, my presentation is called Rejoicing in Insects, or The Wonderful Futility of Language, and other things death-related. Of course, I will continue with another story, a brief excerpt from Alice in Wonderland. I don't know if you guys have read the book or seen the movie, but this is actually the part where she is speaking with the chicken-sized gnat about naming and different things like that. The gnat asks of her, "What sort of insects do you rejoice in, where you come from?" "I don't rejoice in insects at all," Alice explained, "because I'm rather afraid of them, at least the large kinds. But I can tell you the names of all of them." "Of course they answer to their names," the gnat remarked carelessly. "I never knew them to do it." "Well, what's the use of their having names," the gnat said, "if they don't answer them?" "Well, no use to them," said Alice, "but it's useful to the people who name them, I suppose." If not, why do things have names at all? I can't say, the gnat replied. So, on that note, why do things have names at all? I would like to talk about how, let's see, as you can see, my writer side is coming out. These are the different insects of Wonderland, by the way. What do you guys think of when you see this? Feel free to call out.
Brown.
Red.
Yeah.
Okay. But when you see those 4 letters, you get a specific image in your mind, right? Well, that is something that is fundamentally different from any other species on Earth. With any other species, let's take, for example, dogs. You say ball to your dog, and the dog recognizes the word ball, and he runs to his ball, picks it up, fetches it, brings it back. That is a causal sequential relationship in which you are prompting the dog to do something for you, or do something in general. What you guys just did there is something very, very different. You affirmed the existence of the ball by forming a thought of it. When I prompted you, rather than doing anything or being prompted to take any action, I prompted a thought. I prompted you to conceive of the ball and recreate the ball in your own mind. It was a reciprocal relationship between me and you and restructuring the ball. The interesting thing about this is that the 4 letters suddenly take on a completely new life. They are no longer just letters. They are no longer just a lifeless symbol. We have affirmed something. We have given it ontological weight. We have made being where there was none. And when we do that, when we affirm the ontological weight of something, we reassure ourselves of our own. So by giving this thing being, we assure ourselves that we are something in our own right. So this was something you probably thought about, or this, or this, or this, or this. PowerPoint is a wonderful tool. But another interesting thing, I have a lot of interesting things. What happens when we name something that already has being? Like this bird. Can you guys maybe tell me the name of this bird? Are you guys bird experts?
Red belly robin.
No, that's not it. Anyone else?
Swallow.
No?
Oreo.
Oreo's good.
No.
Say Oreo louder.
No, you're all wrong.
Bluebird.
What is it? That's right. I was hoping you would ask me that. Well, what if I told you guys that it was an orange-black berry forager? Would you guys feel satisfied with that answer? Is that okay? I mean, I've told you what it is. I've told you what it does. I've told you what it looks like. What more is there that you want from it? Would you feel better if I told you this name?
Yeah, like that.
Well, why do you think it is that when I describe the nature of the object, it's so much less satisfying than when we give it an actual name? When we give it this simple name, we allow ourselves, we prefer simple names rather than the described object, because by giving it a simple name, we recreate it as something that is our own, rather than describing something that existed before we encountered it. In this way, we give ourselves the right to create it as our own. And we basically turn it into something entirely that we share. We recreate it as an idea, and we now have control over that idea in a way that we never had control over the actual bird itself. I had a video about Schrodinger's cat, but I can just describe it to you. This connects with an idea in quantum theory. that usually goes by the name of Schrodinger's cat, and I'm grossly oversimplifying it, but it is the idea that if you put a cat in a box and you put a certain type of poison in the box that has about a 50% chance of killing it, and you wait, and you wait, and then you open the box, that cat will not be alive or dead until you open the box and observe its life or death. So essentially, your observation of the actual event completely influences the actual event itself. In a way, observation constructs reality. Perception defines reality. And that is where postmodern literature takes off from, essentially. It's an interesting relationship between physics and postmodern literature, because we get this idea from physics, we take it, we create it our own, and our observation of it, our observation of the world around us, our recreation of the world around us by naming it, necessarily structures it, defines us. In this way, we create our own world by observing through our own perceptions. So these are all the great, wonderful things about language that give us power, that gives us a certain creative control over the world around us. But what happens when you see this picture? If you guys can't see, that is a picture of two chairs, one on top of one another. Would you say these two objects are the same? Are they different?
Different.
Often.
Well, how do you define same and different?
Well, would you use the same description for them? Would you place them in the same context? Would you say that they offer the same function? Do they look the same?
Whatever. I think they do. I think they do perform the same function. They perform the same function for vastly different people. You would need obviously a giant to sit on a giant chair, and I don't know. Actually, that could. And I don't know the scale of the photo around. I'm nitpicking. I'm really sorry.
No, of course. No. This is what I like. This is why I'm asking these questions.
I mean, that could not be a ocean or a lake. That could be a puddle, and the stone chair could be like the size of my foot, and the smaller chair could be the size of like the tip of my pinky, or it could be that could be a giant chair, and that could be a normal sized chair on top of the giant chair. But I mean, they both have four legs. They both have a back and a bottom. They both theoretically would be used for sitting if there was someone large enough to sit on a big chair, or small enough to sit on a small chair, depending on the size. They are different materials, understandable in the picture.
No, I like that, and you've given me a lot of material, because aesthetically, I think we can both agree they don't look the same. Even whatever the background may be, relatively, they look completely different from one another. And I would disagree with you in the function capacity as well. I think what the person for whom this chair is intended necessarily shapes its function. So if a giant tries to sit on the wooden chair, he's going to break it. It serves no function for him. If a 17th century Frenchman, which is what the wooden chair looks like it's intended for, sits on a giant stone chair, it's going to feel like he's sitting on a building foundation, just looking out around him. But you also got to a nice point, which was that, well, they still have to be the same. They both have four legs. They both have a back. They both have a seat. And in that regard, yes, both can be described by the same word, chair. They both fit the definition of chair. But the definition itself is a structure we have created. We have named these objects as chairs, and then in the process of naming them, we structure their being to suit our own reality. I think we can both agree that aesthetically they're different, functionally they're different, but via definition they're the same. But what weight does definition hold in a real world? So in this way, naming these two things as a chair does little to describe them, actually, which is ostensibly what naming is for. However, naming them as chair affirms both of them as the same thing and gives us the right to affirm them. It gives them being, and again, it's a process of creation that we are taking part in. And it's my idea that in naming these things chairs, we aren't attempting to describe them. The primary focus is to reassure ourselves of our creative capacity. And here's the same thing, the same picture I showed you guys before. These are all balls. These all go by the same definition. And sure, we have modifying names. We have a tennis ball, we have a golf ball, we have a soccer ball, we have a ball of yarn, exercise ball. But in a way, adding more names to the original name that we have, it doesn't resolve the problem. We can always go down to a further regression in meaning. Take that tennis ball, for instance. I can say tennis ball, that won't necessarily mean anything. That's a new tennis ball. We could have a soggy tennis ball. Do they describe the same thing? If I show you two soggy tennis balls, one is frayed, the other one is not so frayed. Now we have a soggy tennis ball that is frayed, and as you can see, there's kind of an infinite regression of meaning that serves no other purpose other than to perpetuate more and more and more and more words. Our usage of words and our usage of naming the world around us is almost comparable to a junkie thinking that the next hit is going to resolve everything and get them clean. We're addicted to words. We're addicted to naming the world around us, even in spite of the necessary futility of it all. And this comes to my conclusion, which is that, okay, if words are so futile, if language doesn't do anything besides be some sort of self-reassuring mechanism that doesn't help us necessarily with anything, why do we do it? Why the fuck am I a writer? And this is my theory. By constantly engaging in acts of creation, naming things and exchanging ideas about those names, however ultimately futile those gestures may be, we distract ourselves from our apparent insignificance in the universe. By constantly creating and speaking words, we reassure ourselves that we possess control over our lives, including what appears to be the only inevitability there may be in life, which is death. By constantly creating, we assure ourselves of the same power that God possesses. Just in the same way, here are some streetlights. In the same way that the streetlights we created obscure our view of the stars with light pollution. Look outside, when you go outside on the streets in downtown LA, can you see the stars? And when people list a number of the things that make them feel most insignificant in the world, looking up into the starry night sky to see how many more stars, how many more planets, how vast the universe is. When we look up into the night sky in downtown LA, we don't see those stars. We see instruments of man's creation. We see a reminder of all the power and all of the significance that we have in the world. And it helps us to cope. It helps us to cope with the lives we lead, and possibly the difficulty plowing forward in some of these regards. So in the same way, language, words, names, in a lot of ways are our streetlights. They are our way of obscuring the onset of the black necessarily. And this is a reflection, this is reflected in the ending of the Gnat scene that I read to you guys earlier. The Gnat goes through a description of all the menagerie of the Wonderland insects. This is one of them. This is the bread and butterfly. Its wings are thin slices of bread and butter, its body is a crust, and its head is a lump of sugar. What does it live on? Alice asked. Oh, weak tea with cream in it. A new difficulty came into Alice's head. Supposing it couldn't find any, she suggested. That it would die, of course. And Alice is shocked at this fact. She says, well, I suppose that happens a lot. And then Dad's careless reply to her is, oh, it always happens. And she's shocked by this fact. She's shocked into silence. And why is it so shocking and alarming that we all die in a way? And it's because we place all of these objects, all of these names between us and what comes in our insignificance. By naming and explaining through language, we've asserted ourselves as the principal determiner of reality. We are the ones who decide if Schrodinger's cat is alive or dead. We are the magicians from the story before. Word after word, we convince ourselves that we have the same power as God. The power to determine reality and the power to earn immortality through creation. But the nice, reassuring part of it all is, quite frankly, since none of us have died yet ourselves, who among us can say that's not true? But, yep.